There we are. Hi, everyone. Sorry about that delay. We had a bit of an issue with the other platform. So um, I'm just going to give a little pause here, but I think we're live now and I think we're good. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks again for your patience as we figured all of that out. Type it in the chat, Llama, let us know where you're from. Let us know if you can see and hear us okay. And we'll just go ahead and get started too. My name is Marian. I'm your host for today. I have the wonderful Max McGee here with us doing a sketching demonstration with a focus on wood and stone textures. So we'll just go ahead and not waste any more time and let them get started. We'll give a little bit of extra, like 10 minutes past the half-hour mark because we started a little bit later, but we thank you all for sticking around as we got that figured out. Great, awesome. I got some llama in the chat. Max, I think we're about ready to go.
Good.
We got people watching and waiting. Yeah.
Alrighty.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and bring it on over to you. What are we doing here today? What's going on? What are you teaching us?
Well,
Yeah.
first of all, thank you so much, and thank you to Etcher. It's really exciting to be here, and I'm happy to be doing this, and I'm so excited to have all of you that have joined to teach you a little something that maybe I know about sketching. Today, I really want to focus on texture. As you've probably seen in some of the promo, this is the drawing that we're going to make today together, or that I'm going to show you how to make. And I'm going to be using primarily these reference textures. So there's really no reference photo, which is actually quite unusual for me even. I generally always draw from reference photos, or I'm at least looking at something. But I'm going to show you how you can focus on kind of these simple wood and stone textures, and you can kind of keep them in your cache so that you can then employ them on larger drawings, on larger scales when you're actually drawing something that you see. And I'll kind of explain that along the way as we go. So if everybody's ready to go, I think we should just go ahead and get started, right?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I posted the link to the Dropbox of the reference photo textures. It's also in the video description, everybody, if you would like to take a look at it while Max demonstrates today. Any questions for Max regarding his process or his approach behind it all, please leave it in the chat. You can all caps the word questions so that I can see it a little bit better. But I won't want to interrupt Max very often. We'll want him to keep going. So I will save questions that are not immediately relevant to the very end. Okay.
Very good. All right. Well, first of all, we're going to move pretty quick. So, don't focus on following along too much. I'm just kind of going to talk you through my process. I'm starting here with the Sakura Pigma Micron 005, which you can really just use any fine point fine liner that you would like. My idea being that I like to use a very fine pen because I don't want my lines to be too permanent. And you'll kind of see why, because it's kind of all about layering. So real quick here, we're going to draw this basic cabin structure, like I have in my sort of promo picture there. And essentially, this is just a cube. You can actually, if you'd like, you can draw the entire cube here. You really don't have to worry about the details because this exercise is not about perspective. We're not worrying about perspective. We're worrying about texture, and we're going to do a little bit of cross-hatching too at a certain point. So right here, we're just going to kind of get the roof of the cabin here. Little simple structure. It's not about being perfect. I know that it's easy to look at finished pen and ink drawings and go, wow, there's so much detail in there. How could you get all that in? Well, you're about to see that in reality, it's not about being super perfect. It's about having a consistent approach and kind of taking your time with things. Honestly, absent of a time limit, you could spend 30 minutes on this. You could spend 3 hours on this. It's really up to you. As you can see here, we have a pretty basic cabin structure. We are going to do a little bit of perspective, and I'm going to teach you how to divide a plane here in perspective. So underneath this roof, you have this front of the cabin, right? We're going to find the midway point by doing that. just crossing. And then we're going to draw this all the way through, just like that. So that's your halfway to halfway. You can then further divide these if you'd like. And now, as you can see, you kind of have what could become logs, which they are going to become, because what I'm going to do on this front side of the cabin is I'm going to do this structure right here, or this texture right here. You could use either one of these, but I'm going to do this a little bit more because I like the large chunks of wood in a log cabin. I think it makes it look more like a cabin. Every cabin has a door, so first and foremost, let's go ahead and just put a little door in here. As you can see, the top of the door is going to follow this line. That helps it look a little bit in perspective. I know I said we're not going to focus on it because we're not, but while we're here, we might as well. So let's start here. That'll kind of sneak behind. Logs and trees are pretty straight, but oftentimes you'll see them have kind of a slight curve, just with like the general waviness of wood. And I think, you know, that's kind of something you want to accentuate here. On your edges, you can kind of bring that out more as well if you'd like. See how they're kind of, you know, we're just going to round them out there. I might make these smaller just because those are some pretty big pieces of wood. But right now we're going to focus on these kind of heavier lines that show, you know, obviously here's 1 log, 2 log, 3 log, 4, you know, you can have as many as you can really fit on there. And then what I want to show you and what I want you to focus on here is that it's not about recreating this exact piece of wood. And that's kind of what I want to show you here. A lot of videos, a lot of texture training, you focus on a block, right? And that's what we're doing now. I'm just going to try and make it less like a block and more like an actual structure. So, you know, you can actually practice drawing this. So in this case, this is why I say use a fine pen, because these lines here, these sort of, I guess, tree rings, striations, I don't know, I'm not really an expert here, what you would call these, but the grain of the wood, I guess, is what you would call it. Very, very light texture. A few knots in there will kind of make it seem more lifelike, because no logs are perfect. You're always going to find those knots in the tree, and that kind of, it's about training the person to look at this and go, huh, that's wood. And so you want to just do little things that make people realize and think that that's wood. You know, it's about teaching the brain to see something that's not really there. You know, if you were to zoom in, you would see that this is just a sort of assortment of lines, you know. Mm-hmm. But from far away, you're going to find that you know, that it has this sort of wood texture. And again, I'm moving fast. This is faster than I even normally draw, to be clear here. I spend quite a long time on my drawings. So no worries if you're not keeping up, if you're drawing along.
Yeah, would you actually, Max, be able to zoom in a little bit so we could see some of those marks that you're making in the log?
Yeah, right? Unfortunately, this is as much as I can zoom, but I'm gonna pull it up a little bit so you guys can see what I've laid down.
That's great.
Again, it's really, really simple lines. And kind of the thing about pen and ink drawing that is sometimes, I think, off-putting to some, especially new people, is that, you know, you spend 10 minutes and you only have these lines, you know, a few lines down. But what I'm going to show you is that if you're able to just put in a little bit more time and build this up, you will see that this will start to take on quite a lot of depth. And that's where your cross-hatching is going to come into play, which we will focus on now.
Awesome. There was a relevant question here, maybe I think we could ask. Yeah. Would you sketch anything on rough paper? Or do you prefer smooth?
I tend to prefer smooth paper, but I could see how it would be kind of cool to draw on rougher paper. I just find that the smooth paper is easier with these fine nibbed pens. You're always looking for that fine balance between paper that's absorbing the ink, paper that's letting the ink sit on top. In my case, I tend to prefer consistency in my pen stroke. And that's something that I look for because it's all about variables, right? I want to remove some variables. I want to maintain some other variables. You know, my hand is not super straight right now. I'm not using a ruler. I'm not drawing super straight lines. However, a lot of the other components of this are sort of, they're fixed or rather fixed, you know? Now what I want to turn to is to give these logs a little bit more depth, right? Because right now they're kind of flat. So as you can see here, this is the rounding of the log, right? If you were to look at this whole picture, you'd see very clearly that these are logs. That's, you know, they've kind of cut off the end here. So over back on our cabin structure here, we want to give these a little more depth. And so what I'm going to do is use cross hatching to make this area darker. This is where the log is sort of rounding in. So naturally, you know, I'm not worried about where the light is really coming from, but naturally it's going to be darker there. You know, let's assume that the light is coming reasonably from the top. You can do straight cross hatching, and in fact, maybe that's what I'll do today. You can also do contour cross hatching, where your lines are slightly curved to follow the log. I think that there's, you know, you'll see some of my drawings where I keep my cross hatching very straight. You'll see some where I do curved. Straight is nice because you can really focus on consistency. And I think that it's a certain style, it's a certain look, certainly. But it's also kind of, it's one less thing to think about, right? All I'm going to do is draw these straight lines. And as you can see, I'm doing the same pen stroke, or the same directional stroke, just over it again to make it a little darker. And I think I will do that. You know, every time is a little different. I think I'll do that again down here. Some of you are probably asking, why don't I just do it straight across? Well, I could do it straight across. It's probably a good idea, save time. Sometimes I find that I'm not very efficient in my drawings, but that's part of the learning process. You'll slowly find little tricks, little things. You'll notice as you draw more, you'll notice what are things that I should do slowly and what are things that I can kind of skip on or skimp on and speed through to get the same effect. My own opinion is the more time you spend, the more fine your lines are, the better the end product will be, but you don't always have to do that. So these are dark, right? It's dark right here. So what I want to do next is that I want to make it, to give it a little more depth, I'm going to make it darker right here in the center. So in this case, very quickly, I will go back over it with a crosshatch that's at an angle. You could do it at the other angle if you'd like. I'm just left-handed, so it's a little easier for me to do it this way. I'm not a cross-hatching expert. I'm not well-versed in many techniques, but I'm just showing you kind of the way that I do it. And in this case, I want it to get a little bit darker by the line or by where the two pieces of wood meet. So I'm going to do another layer of cross-hatching in there. Also, what you'll notice with this cross-hatching is that it takes the focus away a little bit from these lines that we focused on before. So one thing about shading is that it sort of, I wouldn't say muddles up your details, but your details are not forced to be kept like right there on the page. They're kind of hidden beneath this layer of shadow, which again helps the eye think that there's a lot of detail in there. And these little knots that we're focusing on, they're going to help the eye say, oh, that's wood. That looks like wood to me. I think that I'll do a little bit of cross-hatching under there just to give it some shading, kind of give it some roundness. I'll pull it up again here so you guys can see.
Awesome. I was about to ask that. Oh, so yeah, it really is just straight lines all the way across.
It's just straight lines all the way across.
Value.
And it's very simple. It's very, there's not a lot of detail, but as you can see, even farther away, look at how much depth that starts to take on. And I think the important thing about an exercise like this is that it teaches you, especially if you're new at drawing, like I was not so long ago, that very quickly you can achieve this depth, and it's rewarding, I think, because you can look at it and go, wow, that has like some tactile feel to it, that has something that I created, Another thing I want to focus on, and I think, obviously cabins do not have a wood side and a stone side, but let's just say this one does. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and we're going to do this side in stone. So I have two different kinds of stone here for you to look at. These pink marks are that if you look in the reference photo, it's a little easier to see in that you can see little areas of darkness, right? And so this is where the rock kind of goes under that, under the mortar, I guess. Is that what it's called? Yeah. I'm not an architect either, just as a little, I don't do construction. I'm not an architect. So, but you can see where there's a little bit of depth in there, and that's going to help us achieve, again, depth. It's all about light and shadow. It's all about that cross hatching. Since we're short on time, I'm going to draw you some pretty big stones. So again here, still using that 005. I tend to stick to one pen for a lot of it. We're going to divide this plane just because we're here. You don't have to do that for this drawing. That's not the purpose of this, but it's a really nice way. If you divide halfway and halfway and connect, that will keep this line in perspective. Same thing if you were to do that up here, we can eyeball it, but this halfway point to this halfway point, if you draw that and connect them, as you can see, it will kind of keep it in perspective. So if you're ever in a pinch and you want to just do some quick perspective without a vanishing point, you can always do that. And I'm sure there's many better ways to explain that, but that's the best I've got for you for now. So now we're going to focus on some rocks, right? As you can see, these rocks don't really, like this middle part, that's the thing about general stone structures and bricks. These little dividers, they don't all line up. Because if you just had two rocks over each other like that, it wouldn't be a very strong structure. So one of the telltale signs is that of stone, or sort of when you want to see stone, this is what you're looking for. You don't want these lines to all be just stacked on top of each other, because that's not what stone looks like. So in this case, we're just going to draw some rocks. Don't worry about them the outline is not important right now. And they don't need to look like this either. Those are just there for you to reference the texture. We can go in here, we'll just draw some of these. So now obviously that's going to be there. So I want to put another stone right down here to keep the structure standing, if I were really building it.
We got a really good question here about cross-hatching.
Yeah.
Don't mean to interrupt you, Max.
Go ahead. No, please.
So they were asking, so do you do the cross-hatching first and then the texture lines? Like if you were to list this in like 3 steps, would you say structure, cross-hatching, then texture, or how would you order it?
Other way around. I would do structure, I would do texture, and then cross-hatching.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would go back if I felt like I might have gone a little too hard on the cross-hatching and I need to bring out some of that texture again, I'll go back and do some extra texture. And I'll show you one trick you can do next, which is why I said to have that kind of thicker pen. I'll use a 03. And I'll show you what you can do there.
Awesome.
But again here, I mean, it's not the best stone, but doing stone like this is a little faster, especially like this stone. Since there's so many little different sizes, that tends to take a while. I prefer doing this. I think it's a little bit richer, but in this case, we can find ways to give it depth. We can find ways to give it a stone texture. And that's what we're about to do now. Again, these lines helped us keep it kind of all in, so it looks like somebody spent time stacking these up, because if you're seeing this out in the wild, that's what you're going to see. For this texture, let's just focus on little dots. So I tend to just kind of shake my pen you know? We're not going to focus on the lines. We're not going to focus too much on any of that. We're just going to focus on kind of a loose, rough texture here. Kind of just make it look like a rock, right? So we can actually even make the rocks look more like this one if you want, which would mean more dark spots. I think one of the tricks with texturing is that you have some depth in there, because if you're thinking about this as an uneven surface, a textured surface, there's going to be lots of opportunities for light to get blocked, you know? That's what I was highlighting here with these circles, is that these are areas where if you look at it on a screen, you can see that light has been blocked there. So it's going to make it look more like it's popping off the page, you know? But again, these are gestural sort of lines here. This isn't like real drawing. I'm not trying to match exactly what these are. I'm just trying to give a very consistent across the board texture to this surface. And it's these shapes and the contrast that's going to give it that stone texture. So one way we can do that too is we can go in here and we can lay down some lines across these rocks, just because they should be darker than the cement in between them. Again, this is just straight up and down lines. The finer you can get them, the closer you can get them together, and the straighter you can get them, the better. But don't worry about staining the lines. Again, I mean, I've got ink all over the place on this. Just going to go in here very quickly. I guess this is considered hatching, not cross hatching, technically, this part.
Mm-hmm.
But I told you guys I'd give you cross hatching, so we're going to cross it a little bit.
And that just means overlapping straight lines.
Exactly. Hatching,
Yeah.
These are hatches. Cross hatching, you
Yeah.
just cross them. You don't necessarily cross them like a T. You generally would cross them at like a 45-degree angle.
Mm.
Or another angle. The important thing is consistency. So in this case, I mean, let's play a little bit with light. Let's keep it a little bit consistent. This whole shape is like in a multi-dimension space here with, I mean, the light is going to be kind of all over, but for the stone, let's keep it all consistent. So I want to give these a little bit of depth, right? Let's add just a little bit of shadow to one side. I think it's hard to see because I'm left-handed there, but try and step back a little bit. I'm just going to do these lines at about a 45-degree angle across the left side, bottom left corner, and bottom of the rock. And if I do that to all of them, they will be a little bit more consistent. One thing I found with pen and ink that like I was always really inspired by was just the sort of the patience that pen and ink drawings evoke. And a lot of that just comes from the consistency, you know? So despite working on a varied texture or drawing, you know, leaves or nature that are all over the place, the pen and ink approach tends to just be very slow, and these straight lines that all put together have so much kind of depth and wildness that I think is super exciting. So again, these are big rocks, probably bigger than I would do normally. I would focus more on something like this, which same exact approach. It's just drawing smaller rocks in between. And you could even see if you wanted to kind of do that here, if you were to just lay some rocks in there where they might fit, you could have a texture that's more like this. But for the purposes of this, since we're a little bit tight on time, I'm just going to do large stones. And you can see that, I mean, at least I like to think that it has a little bit of depth to it. I'll zoom it in there for you to take a look at. Again, up close, it's just lines. It's just straight lines. And some kind of swigglies under there. But far away, you start to get a little bit of that depth. Very quickly, up here, I am going to do a different kind of wood. I'm just going to do straight lines. some planks. Usually if you see a lot of cabins, the upper part here tends to have straight up and down wood pieces. Maybe not, maybe somebody's currently inside a cabin right now that doesn't have that, but this cabin does. This area right here, again, it's all about depth. Depth comes from texture and it comes so much from light. This part, if you normally would look at it, this is going to be, usually this wood is kind of going to stick on the outside of the cabin. So I'm going to draw this line a lot darker. If you wanted to use your 03, your slightly thicker pen, you could. It'd make it go a little quicker. But that's why I have the thicker pen here, is just to make it a little bit easier for you. But again, similar here to what we did over here, we're just going to focus on lines in the wood. We're going to do a little knot here and there. It's all about keeping those lines. You know how the grain of wood is. It's just smooth flowing. Maybe more if you were to turn this up and down, you can kind of see what I'm trying to go for here. You might have a piece where the grain is kind of split open like that, you know?
Yeah, so a quick time check, Max. We're about 26 minutes in.
Okay.
Yeah, but we'll have you kind of finish up all the textures here, and then
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk as well. If you want to talk anything else, any other questions, I can draw and talk at the same time.
Sure.
Because right now we're just kind of going to go, we're going to go into some cross-hatching, which is more, I'm just going to explain it and then I'm going to do it. So you'll just, you can follow along.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen any questions other than that last one. So again, for everybody who just joined us, or if you're just kind of enamored with Max's teaching style right now, feel free to ask questions so that we can have Max answer them while he's working, or we can save them for the end as well, depending on how many questions we get. And then we'll talk about his mini workshop too here in a bit. So we'll give you a few minutes to come up with some questions. And Max, yeah. So right now you're still hatching, it looks like.
Now I'm going to go back to hatching because this naturally with the roof is an overhang, right? And so one of the ways that you can kind of show an overhang, despite these subtle little, little bits of shadow. So I just did an initial layer of up and down strokes. I'm kind of going over it again. Your darkest point is going to be this little overhang part here. So what I might do now, normally I'm a proponent of moving your sketchbook. I know a lot of people disagree with that. Some people say move your pen. In this case, I'm moving my pen because I'm trying to film it. So this, I'm going to go back through here with another layer of cross-hatching in a different direction. About 45 degrees, doesn't really matter. Do any kind of direction you want, just as long as it's not like a T. Generally speaking, with cross-hatching, if you cross-hatch like this and then directly across, yeah, it's a style, but it focuses too much on that, I think. You kind of just want a subtle angle between the two different directional lines. So again, I really want this to be dark, so I can even go back at it over the same exact up and down stroke. But as you can see here, this is giving it a little bit of depth. Sometimes I pick up my pen, sometimes I don't. In this case, it's short, so I'm just going to go up and down. It's a short stroke. Some folks are really patient and they do cross-hatching by just line, 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 line. I like to be that way, but I don't always have the patience for it. Let's do a little bit of quick texturing up on this roof. Let me show you, here's a reference photo that I'm actually going to do for my mini workshop. But as you can see, this roof is sort of like a thatched kind of pattern, which is a new texture, but we're going to, we'll work on that. If you join me for the mini workshop, I'll explain it a little bit more. For the purposes of this, we'll start it out very similarly to everything else. So I divided that plane, drew through here, divide again. Let's go another layer because this is a pretty fine structure, or pretty fine texture. And then again, kind of like we did with stone, kind of like we did with bricks. Hope you can see, I'm just going to come in here and draw. In fact, this would be a great time to use my 03 size pen. I know I'm moving quick, everybody, but you get the idea, right? It's pretty consistent. I'm using the thicker pen because you're going to see I'm going to go over this with cross-hatching again. More cross-hatching. Always cross-hatching. So I want these lines to show through the cross-hatching, but I also don't want the roof to be white, if you can understand what I'm trying to explain to you. Right now, this looks like a white roof, but I want to come in and I want to make it a little darker. So I'll just very quickly
So
Yeah.
the reason why you did the thicker pen for the shadows in between the shingles, I guess, is so that they can show through underneath your hatching. Is that?
exactly, yeah.
Got
So
it.
I did them a little darker.
Uh-huh.
And if you find that, you know, you're doing a tone, you know, think of cross hatching as like your tone. This is like
Mhm.
for a pen and ink artist, this is the way to add color, I guess, to a certain extent. Light and color are very, very similar in our world, just because there isn't color. Without cross hatching, this is just a white roof, right? And if I had done the same weight pen, then most of these lines would get lost. So I did a thicker pen in an effort to sort of keep them standing out. And this is where I say the order of like texturing, cross-hatching, and then more texturing. I'm going to go back and probably, if I wanted to really get this to pop off the page, I would go back again and really get under here with some darkness, because this I want to show that this is a layer of shingles on the roof, you know?
Yeah.
So I'll go back over it there. Now, the one thing I did tell everybody to get like a 08 with them. You don't have to do that. The 08 is just to make it a little bit easier. Say, for example, I wanted to make this dark. This is actually one of the etcher pens, so aptly used here. Any 08 will do. A lot of pen companies do 08, but basically just a thick pen. And the reason I'm going to do that is because this area inside this door, I'm basically going to draw black. And so if I were to do this with a 005, it would take me forever, and I would probably not be able to use the pen much anymore after that, just because it'd be so much work on the tip of it. So I'm just going to use a thicker pen, kind of cut some corners here, fill this in because this cabin doesn't have windows or electricity apparently, and it's dark inside.
It's lit by candle.
Yeah, the candle's not very bright though, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really
but I
great.
think, I think we are close to out of time, are we not?
Yeah, we're getting there. And I honestly haven't seen any other questions. I think people were just getting I think you were just so thorough, Max.
Good, I'll take
letting-
it. I mean, if I've
Yeah.
explained it that well that nobody has any questions, then that's fine by
Yeah.
me. I think in our mini workshop, I will have probably more questions because it's going to be this on a much bigger scale. And I'm going to teach you how to sort of take these textures and employ them on a real drawing. So, you know, you might look at this if you're a beginner or somebody that hasn't drawn before and go, there's way too much going on.
Yeah.
But in reality, there's just a few different types of wood, a few different types of stone, and a whole lot of cross-hatching and texturing. And that's
A
what I
little bit of
really want
elbow
to explain to you.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah,
That looks
hopefully
great.
this-
Yeah. I love it. And
Yeah.
it's really simple as far as like techniques at the end of the day.
Super simple.
You know, yeah. So comments I've gotten here is that you were awesome, and thank you, Max.
Thank you.
yeah, and that I think you were just so thorough that like I don't really see a whole lot of questions from the 60-ish people that we have here watching today. Um, so in that case, if you guys happen to think of any, feel free to chime in now. But I think we'll go ahead and just talk a little bit more about the mini workshop. I know Max talked about it just a little bit, but we'll go and touch on it again. Yeah, Joey says that you explained very well. Thank you so much, Max.
Thank you for
Great.
tuning in. I'm glad that everybody's finding
Yeah,
what I have to say valuable and taking drawing
yeah,
along with me, hopefully.
yeah. He says there again comments that you're making it look so easy. So yeah, kudos to you.
Thank you.
So Max, let's bring back that photo reference of the cabin.
Yeah.
And do you happen to have any ink drawings of something similar or an example of that? Maybe people can see what it looks like on a larger scale. If not, no worries.
It is in another sketchbook that I currently have kind of packed away right now. I'm in
Oh,
the
no
process of
worries.
moving, so
Yeah,
let me see if I have anything. I should have
no,
thought
no
about that.
problem.
Everybody kind of
That's
sees my
okay.
work in general, but
Yeah, Max is in the middle of a cross country move, so understandably he doesn't have everything on hand. But
yeah.
just for everyone chiming in and would like to learn more inking, Max will be going through a more step-by-step approach in the mini workshop. I posted the link a few times in the chat, but I'll post it again here. His mini workshop is on October 25th, so at the end of this month at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And check out the link there and you can see what you'll be teaching. The reference photo is of this cabin. That is what you will be drawing. I believe Max has the materials list on this page.
Mhm.
Probably recommend nothing too huge, otherwise it would just take you forever to complete that drawing within the
Yeah, I
90
will
minutes you have
probably
for him.
draw this
Yeah,
about like maybe across the bind or even a
Mhm.
smaller 4x6 just to keep it within the time.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. But you'll basically expand on what we taught, what Max showed today in today's demonstration, how to put all those texturings and those processes together in a way that's very easy to follow along. And I think for those of you interested in inking, you'll get a lot of value from Max because clearly he explained so well that we don't have a whole ton of questions here today. So great. Okay, so we did get a couple, so I will just shoot them to you here, Max, real quick, and then we'll call it a
okay,
day.
great.
Um, yeah. So some more comments. You're an amazing teacher. You love your teaching style.
Thank
Very
you.
inspiring to see how quickly you made it look like something. Um, okay, so Shazia is asking, how long should they practice daily to get to a good stage where they're able to sketch anything they can see?
Okay, drawing anything you can see is a totally different ballgame for sure.
Yeah.
But in my case, I will explain where I came from. I put a lot of time in initially. So I started drawing during the pandemic when there was a lot of extra time on hand. And so I was drawing in the morning and the evening, probably a total of 3 to 4 hours a day. And I did a 1 day, one drawing for a year to keep myself sort of, pen to paper. But it's really, for me, it's kind of about consistency. It's just like any hobby. It's like music, sports, math is a big one. If you don't practice it, then you won't get better at it. So even if you only have 30 minutes a day or an hour a day, just try and put your mind to it. Set everything aside for a little while and focus on it. I would say a little bit of time every day is better than 6 hours once a week. You know what I mean? I think it'll help you make it a part of your daily routine and make it something that you genuinely look forward to doing, not something that, oh, it's Saturday again. Let me wake up early and draw all day long, you know?
Yeah, yeah, less like a chore and more of something you look forward to, and it's part of your ritual daily,
Yeah,
even if it's just 5 minutes a day. That's
yeah.
still, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Thank you. And then another question, do you happen to have any more tutorials anywhere else? They would love to
I
do more.
don't. No, this is an Etcher
Okay.
exclusive, everybody.
At your exclusive, awesome. We're going to snatch onto that and hopefully keep Max forever at Etcher
Yeah.
because this is great. So yeah, so again, I would sign up for his mini workshop. It's I think $6 to attend. And if you're not able to attend live, you will get a recording that will be sent out to you after a couple of days. So you will have lifetime access to it, and you can rewatch it as many times as you need. And I think it'll be a good time, really. Cool. Yes, more Max than Etcher. Yes. Okay. We hear you loud and clear. All right. Okay, everybody. Well, we hope to see you all at the mini workshop. As many of you can sign up as possible. If we have enough people sign up, we'll be able to open a master class with Max that we tentatively have maybe for the next month. If you would really like to go even deeper and learn at a longer class period as well with Max. But in the meantime, please sign up for the mini workshop. Even if you can't make it, you will have a recording and Max will be able to slow down even more and spend a little bit more time with each of you, give you a little bit of feedback if you'd like to share your work as well, you know, to follow along with him. A couple more links that I'll post here before we end for today. We have our survey link as usual. This is just a link to a Google form that allows us to know how we're doing. So because this is Max's first time doing some kind of teaching, I think it'd be really valuable to send in your feedback so that Max knows what he's doing really well and what we can both improve on. Or if you just want to give us some kudos, we definitely will take compliments as well. Okay. We also have our Facebook group, which if you are not already a part of, it's a very close-knit community just for Etcher people. And it allows you a space to post your work that you've done through Etcher mini workshops or demos. Sometimes the teacher themselves will be present in the Facebook group and may give you feedback. So if that's something you would like to do, please join our Facebook group. Otherwise, you can follow Max on Instagram. And I'm sure if you tag him in something that you did Etcher related, he would love to take a look at it and maybe perhaps give you some feedback on Instagram as well. How does that sound, Max?
Please do. Yeah, absolutely. I respond to everybody on Instagram. Would be happy to look at your stuff and chat about all things drawing and art. And yeah, hope to see you join my workshop. I'd really like to have you there and be able to go a little more slowly with you and you know, get deeper into all this texture stuff and all this pen and ink stuff.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then for those of you who are watching the recording of this demo, leave us a comment below this video. Let us know what was the most, your biggest takeaway from learning Max's approach here to inking. Was it easier than you thought? Was it simpler than you thought? Or do you feel empowered to take on a really complicated looking subject? Let us know how you feel, and we'd be happy to see how everyone's feeling at the end of that too. Okay. All right, I think I did all of whatever I needed to do on my end. So again, thanks to everyone. You feel empowered. Okay, thank you for responding to that. Great, I appreciate that. Max, thanks again so much for showing us your magic here today. And I think you definitely have a gift, so please continue to nurture that. I think it'll be great for everybody involved. Any last words before we close off here?
No, I just want to say a big thank you to you, to Etcher. I think it's such a great platform. I think your supplies is great. This whole community you're creating to help each other learn, and I'm honored to be a part of it. And I hope I've inspired some people out there to pick up a pen and start drawing, or a pencil or paintbrush or whatever. It's all about just sticking to it and having a little bit of patience, and you can make something really cool, and you can join a really great community online and I don't know, elsewhere, I suppose.
Yeah.
So thank you again. It was really great to meet you and work with you, and we'll see you guys in what, a few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. I'll spotlight his work one more time. See you all. Have a good rest of your week. Happy Monday, and we'll see you at the mini workshop. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.